this video, we are going to discuss about the lesser sac or omental bursa. So, what is lesser sac? We already know. Once, let us draw the sagittal section to understand what are its boundaries by what it is formed. Okay, sagittal section we are going to draw. So, first, here you will have your liver, right? So there will be fossa covering it, peritoneum covering it, and here you'll have your stomach, right? So this is a greater omentum. This is its first layer. This is its fourth layer. This is its second layer, third layer, right? And this in turn will continue, that to form a transverse mesocolon over here like this, right? And this lesser sac will continue like this upward. So okay, so let us see what about this lesser sac. So lesser sac is actually a peritoneal cavity behind the stomach and behind the lesser omentum posterior layer especially, and also it's behind the caudate lobe of the liver, right? So this is lesser sac, and if you see, it is continuous everywhere except its right border upper part. So for that we need to draw a transverse section, okay, to understand what I'm saying now. So especially in the transverse section, if you see, this is lesser sac. So in its right upper side, if you see, it is open. It is closed all sides around except in the upper part of right border, where it communicates with the greater sac by means of epiploic foramen. So it would be like this actually. This is lesser sac, this is greater sac, and in middle you'll have epiploic foramen. Already I made a video on epiploic foramen, you can check out that. Okay, so lesser sac, epiploic foramen, greater foramen. So only in the right side it is open to enter into the greater sac, that's it. So this is in the sagittal section, this is in the transverse section. Okay, so now let us understand its boundaries, like by what it is formed. So especially if you see its anterior wall, right, it is formed by caudate lobe of liver over here, like this here, right, by caudate lobe of liver, and also by lesser omentum posterior layer, right? So this is the anterior peritoneal layer of lesser omentum, and this is a posterior peritoneal layer, right? Let me mention it as lesser omentum, right? So posterior layer of lesser omentum, and next also anterior two layers of greater omentum, like the second layer and third layer of greater omentum. This is greater omentum. So these layers form the boundary, anterior boundary for our lesser sac. Coming to the posterior boundary is formed by structures of stomach bed like this on the back side, and also by the posterior two layers of greater omentum. Like you see the 1 and 4 layers, they are forming the posterior wall of the lesser sac. Okay, now coming to the right border. The right border is formed by reflection of peritoneum from diaphragm. Here will be the diaphragm, right? So the reflection of peritoneum from the diaphragm to the right margin of the caudate lobe along the left edge of inferior vena cava. For this, let me show the real diagram in a textbook. So here this forms the right margin of lesser sac. You can see the right edge of inferior vena cava. So this side, this is forming a right margin for our lesser sac. Okay. So if you observe this diagram, it is the left edge of inferior vena cava is forming a right border, and also the floor of epiploic foramen. So for example, if epiploic foramen is here, then its floor will be here. So this is also forming its right margin, and also the pancreas. You can see here it's mentioned clearly, the pancreas to the posterior surface of first part of duodenum, and also the medial to gastroduodenal artery. Actually somewhere over here will be the gastroduodenal artery. So this all is a right border of lesser sac, which is formed by all the structures, and also it is formed by a right free margin of greater omentum, and where second and third layers of omentum become continuous with each other. So for that you need to see here. So this one, this second and third layer where they are continuing. So actually this is a right margin of lesser sac, or also called omental bursa. So this is anterior wall. This is right margin. So this right margin only, if you see in transverse section, then you have all the structure. What are those? First you have inferior vena cava, next you have pancreas, after that you have your artery, one artery, that is gastroduodenal artery, medial to gastroduodenal artery, and also you have the right free margin of greater omentum, that is a second and third layers of greater omentum. So exactly this region, if you see in transverse section, it looks like that. So we have discussed about the right border. Now let us discuss about left border. This is the left border, which is actually formed by gastrophrenic ligament, means from the stomach to the diaphragm, right? So the gastrophrenic ligament is actually not shown here, but remember that the gastrophrenic ligament, the gastrosplenic ligament, which you can see from the stomach to the spleen, and also have lineorenal ligament, which is coming from the stomach like towards nearer to kidney, so hence the name lineorenal ligament. So all these ligaments are forming left margin of the lesser sac. So this is, if you see in a horizontal section, right? And also the left margin of lesser sac is formed by second and third layers of greater omentum over here. So actually this is a left margin, if you see by sagittal section. So left margin, right margin, anterior wall, okay, where you also have gastrophrenic ligament. Here will be diaphragm, okay. So we have discussed the anterior wall, right margin, left margin. So now let us discuss about anterior wall. So upper border. So this is the upper border exactly here, and this, of course, this will be the lower border. So the upper border is formed by mainly the reflection of peritoneum on diaphragm from the esophagus, and also from upper end of fissure of ligamentum venosum, and also by upper border of caudate lobe of liver. So this is upper border. Coming to the lower border, it is formed by second and third layers of greater omentum. That's it. So these are all the different layers of our lesser sac or omental bursa. Now let us see what are the subdivisions of lesser sac. So for the subdivisions of lesser sac, we need to switch to this diagram. So before seeing these points of subdivision, let us understand this diagram first. So here this is the lesser sac and this is a greater sac. So in between you can see this is the epiploic foramen, which is, this is lesser sac, this is greater sac. So between lesser and greater sac you have epiploic foramen, and you know that this lesser sac is in turn divided into like two recesses. One is superior recess, okay, of the lesser sac, and this is the inferior recess, and one more recess is a splenic recess, which is near to the spleen. So these are the three recesses of the lesser sac, which are mainly divided by, you can see here, gastropancreatic fold. You have two folds on right side and left side. So this is a right gastropancreatic fold and this is a left gastropancreatic fold, okay. So these are like subdivisions of the lesser sac. And one more thing, actually, why this left gastropancreatic and right gastropancreatic folds are formed? They are formed by because of downward and forward course of hepatic artery. So because of hepatic artery, these folds are formed. That is the right gastropancreatic by means of right hepatic artery, and left gastropancreatic by means of left gastric artery. Okay. So see that right gastropancreatic is because of right hepatic artery, okay, here hepatic artery, and here the left gastropancreatic fluid is due to left gastric artery. So here gastric, here hepatic artery. So because of them these folds are formed. So now let us see where exactly the superior and inferior and splenic recesses are present. Actually the superior recess is present exactly behind the liver and also exactly behind the lesser omentum, okay, and the portion of lesser omentum which is behind the lesser omentum, this is just back like the portion behind the lesser omentum is called vestibule of lesser sac. This is called vestibule. You can see here it's clearly mentioned, vestibule of lesser sac, okay. And next, coming to inferior recess. Inferior recess, if you say, it is behind the stomach and it is within the greater omentum itself. And if you see the splenic recess, it is lying between the gastrosplenic and lineorenal. You can see here this is the lineorenal ligament and you have the gastrosplenic ligament. So between them you have the splenic recess. So this is all about lesser sac or omental bursa.